Alright guys, how's everybody doing? I know, you're expecting somebody prettier for Dial It Up. Give me a break. Because I know how pretty she is. She's my wife after all. Alright, so next week, Amber and I are going away on a beautiful trip to New Orleans. As well, afterwards, we're going to find ourselves at the Rock World Cup in Atlanta. What that means is we're not going to be able to film anything next week, and Amber's work schedule decided to be very busy for the week of filming before the Rock World Cup, so I've got to take over for her for an episode of Dial It Up again. And this particular week, Amber wanted to kind of clean up some of the loose ends she's left behind and some of the resource episodes she's been meaning to do. So we're actually going to cover 2 resources and a con-exclusive figure that she felt needed covering, but doesn't necessitate a whole episode to cover. So without further ado, let's get into how we use the Big Giant Head and the Kree Supreme Intelligence, the Punisher Van's resource, and then how the Turtle Van's dial works. Alright, so let's get things started off with the oldest thing that we owe you for the longest time, and that is the resource for the Kree Supreme Intelligence, as I throw the base on the ground because I have taken this thing apart a lot. So, the way the Supreme Intelligence resource works is for 12 points, you slap this resource on one of your characters. And then from there, you got the assign portion here. Assign. When building your force, assign this resource to a character on your force of 50 points or more. So you got to point out that initially. If the character has the Kree keyword, it can be any point value. So it could be like a 25-point Kree soldier from way back in the day. Probably not such a good idea. Anyway. At the end of your turn, you may turn the dial once clockwise. If the assigned character hit an opposing character with an attack this turn, you may turn it up to 2 additional times. The assigned character can use the displayed powers. Now, if you actually look on the dial, it's built just like a regular figure dial. There's a movement, attack, defense, and damage slot, and then there will be a colored square in there representing the power of that color. So it goes across the whole gamut. I mean, it starts with sidestep and telekinesis, and so you get an idea of that, and then moves in all sorts of different power combinations as it goes. But eventually, towards the end of the dial, it comes across this white square in the movement. That is manifesting through you. Stop turning the dial when this click is revealed. Give the assigned character a power action and place it on its character card. Replace the assigned character with the Kree Supreme Intelligence character dial on the same click number as the assigned character. When Supreme Intelligence takes damage, the assigned character takes the same amount of damage. If either the assigned character or Supreme Intelligence is KO'd, so is the other character, but no points are scored for Supreme Intelligence. Now, just so you get an idea, click number 1 on this is on a 1200 point dial or 900 point dial, so you get an idea as to why they try to balance it in that manner. As well, it ends up having the same number of clicks of life as the character it just replaced. So if it happens to be like a 6-click character, once it's taken 6 clicks with it on the board, then it goes away and your opponent scores the character plus the initial 12 points of the resource. Now, there's a couple things to note about this. Moving the dial is 100% optional. As you see, at the end of the turn, you may turn the dial once clockwise. If the assigned character hit an opposing character with an attack this turn, you may turn it up to 2 additional times. So moving the dial on this is 100% optional. So, you know, you get the choice of either rushing to get to that end dial to get this guy on the board with 13 attack with Pulse Wave and 6 damage and 15 range and redonkulousness. Or you can have a click with phasing and perplex or incapacitating and super senses. If you so happen to choose a combination of powers that you see on the dial that you want to keep. So 12 points. If you know, the way it works is you can either bring it out as a big thing or just move the dial to share some powers. Up to you. Gotta be a 50-point character or more, unless it's a Kree, in which case it can be whatever points you feel like putting on. Kree Supreme Intelligence in a nutshell, folks. So that's the first of the con resources that we gotta get over. Next one is the Punisher Van. Now, The Punisher van was packaged with a Punisher character and a stack of weapons. Now, the weapons are more pertinent to the resource dial, but they are also their own equipment. So the Punisher dial itself is 125, 100, or 75 points as a character. But you can, of course, assign it the weapons dial. The weapons dial is part of your force construction, so it's under the force construction and scoring. This resource costs 10 points and begins on its red starting line, or costs 5 points and begins on a blue starting line. So you have two options of starting lines for your resource dial, either red, which is shown with the number 20, or blue, which is shown with the number 10. Now, the Punisher van may be played without paying its additional cost. If you do, the weapons dial is ignored. So you can just play it as a big old cube van, and that's a-okay as well. If you do use the weapon dial, if you do use the weapons dial, choose 4 different weapon object tokens and 3 different weapon 3D objects to assign a Punisher van. Now you'll note they all have point values. That's okay. You don't need to account for that point value. You just have to find the numbers based on this. So 3 3D weapons. There's 3D weapons. You can choose 3 of the 3D weapons in the package. There's a couple of 3D weapons, including rocket launchers, machine guns, any number of things that you can pick from. And then 4 of the weapon object tokens, which also represent, smaller weapons, handguns and grenades and stuff. When a weapon placed by this resource is KO'd, your opponent does not score it. Instead, reassign it to the Punisher van. Now, that's one of those things they cover in this part. That will be covered in the next portion here, the rolling armory. Because obviously these objects don't go anywhere. They're kind of assigned to the van and they're in limbo right now. So the rolling armory, give Punisher van a power action and choose a weapon object assigned to Punisher van of equal or less points than the weapon dial indicates. Turn the weapons dial a number of clicks equal to the weapons cost, then place the weapon adjacent. So what'll happen is you'll take one of your objects, you'll put it next to the Punisher van, then based on the points that object, so let's say it's worth 8 and I'm on 20, I will move it 8 times to show 12 points. When you do, and the Punisher van has a pilot named Punisher, after action is resolved, you may place him adjacent. So you give this a power action, it places an object, dumps out a driver if his name happens to be Punisher after you put the weapon down and move the dial. The action itself, the power action, in order to do it, doesn't deal pushing damage, and the weapons dial may not be used if it crosses the red line. It doesn't actually have a number 0 on it, so you'll cross the red line back to 20. This is something of a limiting factor in the resource. So what'll happen is you'll use an 8-point item, it'll go to 12. You'll use another 8-point item, and it'll go to 4. And then you use a 4-point item, and then you've used all the weapons that you can use for it. It's kind of a weapons dump, just to give you a visualization of it. All right? Now, of course, a couple of things that are very important to remember. The driver has to be Punisher to throw him out of the vehicle. Each of these special objects have their own set of rules. I think Amber might go over them on their own. One of the common rules of it is they're basically equipment, but they're equipment that can be assigned as a free action with a character named Punisher. So there's a lot of things that kind of point this in the direction of Punisher, but you're not limited in using the Punisher. You can use the power action, dump a weapon, pick it up with somebody else. That's up to you. Think your way through it as you feel. We're here to talk about rules. So, again, we'll go through it one more time. You have to pay for the Punisher van in whatever iteration. You pay for it, you pay for the weapons dial. You pick your weapons, and then during the game, you can drop your weapon as a power action from the vehicle, put the weapon adjacent. If your driver's name is Punisher, you can pop him out adjacent to the vehicle as well as a free, or without that being an action, because it's usually an action to remove them from the vehicle. Double check your vehicle rules before you go over all this, because you do have to know how the vehicles work in order to understand how this vehicle works. As far as a resource is concerned, I mean, the vehicle itself has its own vehicle rules, and then you gotta manage the resource as well. So That's why we're doing this episode. I'm talking too much. All right. And that's the Punisher band in a nutshell. So hopefully you guys get a good understanding of how this works. And yeah, it's one of those things that's very basic until you start including other elements of it. So once you start including the Punisher, that's when you start to see what this thing is meant to do. But when you use it with other characters, you can see it piece by piece how the functionality of it kind of goes together. All right. Now the last thing we're going to cover is actually a small portion of another vehicle, and it is my personal favorite vehicle, the Turtle Van. Now, there is something on the Turtle Van called the pizza dial. The pizza dial is not a resource. The pizza dial comes with the van. The van has its own traits. Personal party van. Theme team may include Turtle Van, and is not a theme team as long as a character named Donatello, Leonardo, Michelangelo, or Raphael is on your force. And the Turtle Van can carry characters regardless of battle fury. It's also got the almost useless roof guns. Give Turtle Van a power action to make it an range attack with an attack value of 10, a damage value of 3, and a range value of 6 with 2 targets, but only to target flying characters, giant characters, or colossal characters. But then it's got this third trait. One topic is boring. Get some that I like. Give Turtle Van a power action, and you may immediately activate the Pizza Time trait an additional time this turn. The Pizza Time is why we're here. Immediately after using it the first time, give Turtle Van a double power action. You may activate the Pizza Time trait 2 additional times this turn immediately after using it the first time. So you can, and then the first use is a free action. And Pizza Time reads as follows. Give the Turtle Van a free action to choose a friendly character with the TMNT keyword within 4 squares and roll a d6. Turn the pizza dial that many clicks. If the color topping shown matches that character, heal that character 1 click. If the color matches, but the character is already on a starting line, modify that character's attack and defense values by +1 until your next turn. This dial may turn past click 20, just to cover its own butt. These colors are associated with these character names. Blue is associated with Leonardo. Purple is associated with Donatello. Orange is with Michelangelo. Red is with Raphael. So what'll happen is you'll have the Turtle Van. You'll have to have it piloted because it is not an autopilot vehicle. And then you give the vehicle a free action and then roll a die. And then at the end of that, when you roll the die, before you roll the die, choose a color. Blue for Leonardo, purple for Donatello, orange for Michelangelo, red for Raphael. And then, so it'll be one of the 4 turtles around you. Let's say I picked Raphael and I rolled a certain amount and blue showed up. Well, that means nothing happens. And I like to call this thing the roulette mobile. And then the next turn you roll again, and let's say Raphael shows up. Now, if Raphael has taken some damage, he'll heal 1 click. If Raphael hasn't taken any damage and he's on click number 1, he gets +1 attack and +1 defense, courtesy of this bad boy. Now, another thing worth mentioning, like we said at the beginning, is it's got a trait where you can give it a power action, use it an additional time, or a double power action, use it 2 additional times. So the idea will be, of course, the first time you pick a character, roll the die. Then you do it 2 more times, wash, rinse, repeat. But this will only function if the one that you call is the color that shows. So if you chose purple, or if you chose Donatello and purple shows up, you get the bonus. If you chose Donatello and orange, blue, or red show up, nothing's going to happen with it. It does also show which click numbers have which one. So if you kind of want to play the game of what are my odds on each turtle, how many times is the turtle going to show up within the section that I have, go gung-ho. The numbers are all there for you to figure it out yourself. But it doesn't work unless you get the hard match out of it. So something to be aware of when you're using this. But that said, that's the Punisher Van, the Supreme Intelligence, and the Turtle Van in a nutshell. And that's been, a weird episode of Dial It Up as you guys are lacking Amber this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And always remember to, if you have any episode suggestions or questions or comments regarding this episode, put them in the comments below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Married with Clix is brought to you in part by MajesticCCG.com. Check out the new premium site with MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders. Check the link below. Trust me. Trying to remember that from me talking? Not going to help. You'll get awesome articles at $3 a month, with the first month being free, from amazing writers such as Paris Gordon, Easton Brock, Aaron Cantu. I'm even going to be contributing occasionally. And if you're familiar with the Metal Lab, check out some of Mike Payne's articles. So check it out again, majesticccg.com/apex-insiders for your look into the minds of some of the greats.